everyone. I'm Dr. Cindy, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host of the Positively Altered podcast. So have you ever sat back and observed somebody and thought, how do they do that? Like, how do they manage everything? Raise the kids, go to work, show up at the golf course, do whatever it is that they want to get done and do it well. I know I've even had moments like that where I think, oh my gosh, I am doing it, but how do I keep doing it? Well, if you've ever had those thoughts or you're curious about how we get it done, you're not going to want to miss this episode. So grab something to drink, a comfy place to sit, pull over on the side of the road, but hang tight for a couple minutes. We're going to listen to our sponsors who are very important to me, and we're going to be right back with today's guests.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. I am your host, Dr. Cindy, and I am super excited to have two amazing women with me today, Dr. Tara Chalakani and Gina Sim. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks for having us. Good to see you.
It's great to see you both. So I have to let everybody know this morphed because I was actually a guest on your podcast and had an amazing time. And we talked about all things mental health, right? And I think we even went down the sexual health pathway, which is one of my favorite topics. So I'm hoping we can hit that a little bit today too. But I had such a great time that I was super excited to have both of you on the podcast. You're doing amazing work in this space, and I want to share with all of our listeners. So let's dive in. You ready?
Ready.
How do you do it all? All right. 2 minutes. I want an answer. How do you do it? How do you get it done?
I'm going to let Tara go first on this because she does a lot.
Well, I think you have to want it. That's the first thing. And you have to find what gives you passion and rings your bells, because it's really not about chasing a paycheck or anything of that nature. And that's something that Gina and I focus all the time on our Well Off podcast is, our guests like you have found their passion, and whether it's serving people or cooking or creating or whatever it is, first you have to find out what it is you're on this planet for. And then I think the rest fall into place. And if you want to do things, you'll find a way to make the space for them.
So I know the first question that comes to my mind when you say that, and I'm thinking of handfuls of people that I know that say, but I don't know what my passion is. I don't know why I'm on this earth. So how do we navigate that from a mental health standpoint when we really don't know that answer?
Well, it's a tough one. And I'll say that everyone has to start with therapy. I mean, I'm never going to not tell you it's what I do for a living. So I think that when you find that space, like a safe space with a person that you trust implicitly and isn't judging you and they're objective and not emotionally connected to your life, that's a great start. Just finding someone that's in your corner to kind of help you explore and figure out who you are and what makes you happy.
Now, did you both start out in therapy that you wound up in this space?
No.
No. Yeah. A lot of us
No.
don't, right? We don't start there. We don't start there.
Yeah, that's kind of a jump sometimes. People aren't comfortable with. I mean, I'm not professionally in the mental health space, other than doing that with Tara on the podcast, and I've learned so much from that. I am in therapy now, but it's only been for like the last 5 years.
It's so interesting to me. When I grew up, we used to think that people needed a therapist if they were raised in like an abusive environment or by alcoholic parents. This was my generation, right? That's why you went to a therapist. And I know even for myself, I've learned over decades that there's, probably about 100 other great reasons to engage in therapy. And it's not because we're crazy, right? I want to talk about that word a little bit today, but because I'm probably crazy. And I think that's a good attribute in my space versus the way some people look at it. But I think it's really about learning tools, right, in life to manage some of the challenges. And I'd love to hear both of your opinions on, why you think therapy then is a great thing for people to consider when the mindset a lot of times is very negative.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in therapy, for some people, especially what you were describing, if you have a history of trauma or abuse or anything of that nature, that being in therapy, it might be the first time in your life that you are seen and you feel safe and you're with someone that you can truly trust. And I think that that's really a pivotal experience that really ushers in a lot of change. But I love when I have a client that really doesn't have a lot to sort through and is really entering the space just because they want to be a better version of themselves, or they want to better themselves in some way, because I feel like that work is just as rich and rewarding as helping someone navigate through years of abuse or neglect or something of that nature. So I mean, therapy can't hurt. It can only help. And even if you feel like, well, I didn't get anything out of that except I, unloaded everything that's been going on with me, that's still a benefit.
Mm-hmm. Right. It is. Gina, what are your thoughts on that for people who struggle with that sort of negative connotation with therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of in that bucket. Like I thought kind of going to therapy was, the taboo thing, and I can handle myself. I can take care of myself. I don't need therapy. And then when I was diagnosed with cancer, then I was talking to my doctors and they said, you should probably go speak to a therapist. So I went through, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and I wasn't clicking, it wasn't working. And I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. And then I found one that I meshed with, and it became such a help, talking about my health journey. And then it actually evolved into my narcissistic ex. And so like going through that. And then it was through COVID and dealing through COVID. And then when I moved, I found a new therapist who's wonderful. So right now I can't recommend therapy enough, because it's really helped, like Tara said, to like even just unloading, like what happened this week? Well, here's the list of things, and then kind of navigating through my feelings. And also, like, I say to myself sometimes, am I crazy? Like, am I overreacting to this? And it's just that other person that's being objective with you that's saying like, actually, no, I'll tell you when you're obsessing too much, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I love it. And that was kind of my journey into therapy.
It's interesting. I have this mantra, and I don't know if it's the correct one or not, but it's worked for me a little bit. And that is, in finding a good therapist, I've always wanted to find somebody that I trust, but that I don't necessarily want to be my best friend, right? Because if you're my best friend, I'm probably not going to be challenged enough, but I needed to trust them enough to be vulnerable in order to open up. And still have that respect back that I feel I can be vulnerable, right, to get the right response. So I almost like have this love-hate thing going on, right? Where I don't want you to be my closest, dearest friend, but I need you to be distanced enough with that relationship that still allows that vulnerability. I don't know. Is that what's a good recommendation for people in looking for the right person to talk to? Because I think it's hard to connect with the right person.
It is. And I think that the best thing to do is to vet these people, whether through word of mouth or online profiles, kind of like dating. And just because, and I'll just tell you, what I do is when I meet with someone for the first time, I do not allow them to make a follow-up appointment. I always say, drive home, sleep on it, talk to your spouse, your best friend, your partner, whatever. And if you wake up in the morning and you think this is the right place and that I'm the right person, then we can move forward, because I think people feel pressured. Like they don't want to hurt the therapist's feelings, so they make another appointment. And, we therapists, we have to teach people how to have healthy relationships. And I think there are therapists too that, oh, I saw you Wednesday at 5, so I'll put you in next week, Wednesday at 5. And I don't work that way,
Okay.
But I think you have to, like anything, try it on. And I always tell my clients, like, if you think this isn't the right space, my heart's bigger than my ego, tell me. This is a healthy relationship. My feelings won't be hurt. I'll find you the right fit. So I think the rule of thumb is it can't be like one and done. You really have to shop around and make sure it's the right person, because 84% of the change is in the relationship, not the person's credentials or the diplomas they have hanging on the wall. It's who they are and if you connect with them.
It's so interesting that you phrase it that way. And I would challenge as to how much of our breakdowns in our relationships is due to that lack of communication and that transparency, right? Of being able to say, you are the right one, or guess what? You're not the right one. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And it's that we're so worried about everybody else's feelings instead of doing the right thing by ourselves that causes a lot of breakdown.
For sure.
Yeah. I remember when I first went to my first therapist, it was a Memorial Sloan Kettering employee. So she was a therapist there. And I sit down with her, and it was like the day that my hair started falling out. And I'm sitting there with her, and she's like, so why are you here? And I'm like, because I have cancer. I'm like, because my hair's falling out. I don't know, so that was a very hard way to like break into it. And maybe that was just her approach, but it just didn't mesh with me. So, I ended up leaving in like 15, 20 minutes. I was like, this isn't working, but thank you for your time, and on to the next.
Yeah, it's really interesting. How much do you feel that was able to support you through your journey and your walk through cancer, Gina? Was it essential for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, probably like you. It's definitely, there was a lot of feelings that, even though they didn't understand exactly what I was going through, it was great to talk about some of the things that was happening that I didn't want to talk about with my significant other or my mom or my friends. I wanted to just kind of get an unbiased opinion. And, I was going through a lot of hormone changes as well because medication and all of that. So it was a lot to navigate, and it was during COVID. So it was a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And for a lot of people going through any challenges, I think that there's the current challenges, but there's also the past traumas, right? And I think that's really important that we talk about here. And that is, it's the old joke from conception to the moment you sit on the couch. Where was the trauma that formulates the patterns that may or may not be healthy? And I'd love for you to speak a little bit just about how do we face those? How do we dive into this? Because sometimes we don't even know what the traumas are to sit on the couch, Gina, and go, here's why I'm here. Right.
I know you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Here.
And Tara says some good things. She was on my podcast way back when, and she said that everybody has experienced trauma because they went through COVID.
So even if you walk around and say, oh, nothing bad's ever happened to me, we can all say that now. because we lived through something. I was just actually speaking to a colleague this morning about in my mental health space about how, the children are still deeply affected, and how the social distancing and being separate really impacted their development, and everyone's seeing it. Like I know I've heard a lot this year about incoming college freshmen showing up and 3 days later leaving, not being able to do it. We're just dealing with a totally different demographic of people, from children to adults. I mean, it really changed us all.
It did. It's really
Mhm.
interesting. And just these roadblocks that we've built up over time. How do
Mhm.
we overcome? You mentioned, offline, you mentioned a book called I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. Tell me about that book and why it's so important for people to have
Oh
access
my
to that.
God. It's my favorite book of all time. And I would love to meet Wally Lamb. But what it is it's a story of twins. One is clearly, and I say in quotes, normal, no overt mental health issues. The brother is schizophrenic, and it follows the family through generations. And it really focuses on oh my goodness, spit it out. It really focuses on generational trauma, and the impact it has on a family, but it just through a really real lens, and how the main character of the novel, Dominic, how he enters therapy and then he changes, he softens, he starts seeing things differently, he has more compassion, more forgiveness. It's a brilliant book, and HBO did turn it into a miniseries starting it was Mark Ruffalo, I believe. And I
I
mean,
love
I
him.
don't know. I'm one of those people that I always feel like the screen version never really holds up to the book, but
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
but it's brilliant. But yeah, I forgot that I recommended that to you.
But
Did you
it's good.
read
For
it?
those I'm sorry?
Did you read it?
I didn't, but I'm going to. It's on the
Oh, you
list because you
have
recommended
to.
it.
You
Yeah.
have to.
No, and
Yeah.
I actually love to read and I agree with you. But for people who don't read, at least if you get the screen, if you get the screen show, better than nothing at all. But no, I would prefer to
Yes.
sit into and I'm the girl that opens the book. I want to feel it between my fingers.
Same.
Yeah, no
Same.
Kindle for me. That just gives me a headache to watch the screen go by anyway. So I
Yes.
like the good old fashioned paper. So let's talk about this generational healing, right? Because everything is my parents' fault, right? They taught me what they knew how to do. Well, they did. They did. I mean, no manual, right? They did the best that they could do, and their parents and their parents. And yet, I don't know. Sometimes I believe that I either become my parents, right? I follow in their footsteps, or I become the antithesis of what they've taught me because I don't like what I've learned. And,
Hmm.
it's, I'll share with you, it's interesting. I look back in my history, and I was very close with my mom and my mom's mother, and she lived with her. And there was always a bubby, a grandmother in the house. So, generational, very different. And on my dad's side, my grandfather decided to marry another woman while he was still married to my grandmother and start a family. And I never met her. And we need an hour for me to tell you the whole story, but very, very different, right? Very,
Hmm.
very different experiences in terms of what does family mean, and the respect and the kindness in family. And, sometimes I wonder, okay, well, the way I treat my children, is it the antithesis or the emulation of what I
Hmm.
generationally was taught? So how important is that?
Well, it is. And I think, in your case, it's probably a combination of both, because we can't help our DNA and where we come from. But there's been extensive research by Dr. Besser Vanderkolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score, and Dr. Bruce Perry, who co-wrote What Happened to You with Oprah Winfrey. And they talk about the impact of generational trauma, and how something that could have happened in your lineage to a great grandparent, that trauma carries over from generation to generation. And we see it a lot with racial issues, and the disenfranchisement of African Americans in our country. But our body remembers, our body holds it. So, I mean, I think that there's an element of that where we bring that into the parenting space, but we also have an obligation to not perpetuate that, and do the work and go to therapy and heal ourselves, so that we don't recreate negative patterns or any kind of abusive situations.
How many of us out there do you think, Tara, really just don't even don't even see that, right? Don't understand that as we move through this generation and we parent or don't parent, that we don't recognize these traumas, so that you just keep getting perpetuated generation after generation. Do you think that's more common than not?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of us listening out there, is there, it's a lousy question, right? But like, is there sort of a way to self-reflect and look inward and go, maybe there really is something here? Are there some quick tricks to that? Or is it really a longer process?
Well, we have a little tagline in therapy that if you can name it, you can tame it, right? So first you have to totally identify or even be curious about, I wonder if something's going on that I can change or fix. And I'll always say, go to therapy. But if you can't, whether it's unaffordable or inaccessible, or you're not ready yet, I'd say find a podcast, right? You have this is a podcast. Gina and I have the Well Love podcast. Find something that resonates with you, whether it's a podcast or an iBook or a book, and find a book online. Because sometimes people will ask me, "Oh, do you have a book that you can recommend?" And I said, "You know what? There's thousands of books nowadays. And you have to find what works for you." And I feel like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm-hmm.
So just finding ways to educate yourself about what you're curious about, whether it's generational trauma or parenting or perpetuating patterns, start researching, Google it,
Right.
Start somewhere.
Right. Right. I know recognizing some of that and maybe the word admittance, right? Admitting to the fact that there can be some of these challenges, I know plays a huge role in how authentic we are. And I think authenticity is a really big buzzword. I'd love to kind of run down that rabbit hole a little bit of like, what does it really mean then to be your authentic self, in this space of mental health in order to grow?
Well, I mean, you need to be in alignment. And one of the things, and Gina and I have touched upon it on a couple of episodes, you can't be a big success in work, and then pivot into your personal life and it's a hot mess. That it doesn't align. Like, authenticity means you have to be the same in all areas of your life. And Gina and I both have careers. We have our podcasts, we have side hustles, we have a robust life of family and friends, and we show up the same in all of them. It's not like, oh, this is who I am here. This is who I am here. And I find that a lot. Like, even I work with lots of clients who are extremely successful, but the boundaries and the assertiveness that they can assert in their professional life, they can't in a personal relationship. And that can't be. And I really think that when you find that true authenticity and that alignment, no pun intended, with you as a chiropractor,
Still important, yes.
right? That you find yourself and you find happiness, joy, fulfillment. That you're not living a life of lack. It feels abundant because it's good all around.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's fascinating to me because in a professional sense, and I've been in a professional space that's building more women, but certainly a lot more men. It's been interesting over the years to actually witness exactly what you're talking about, right? The professional that behaves a certain way when they're away from their family, out of town in a hotel somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus maybe at home with the kids. And I always joke, you get who you get. Wherever I show up, you get who you get, right? Like me, love me,
Yeah.
don't, it's okay. But I behave no differently on a business trip than I do in front of my children. And
Right.
It's fascinating to me where people feel, maybe they feel the need to be somebody different because they haven't found that happiness, that peace, to be true to themselves, right? Whatever that is. I don't know. Do you find that a lot in your professional space where there's a big dichotomy of behavior?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. And
And I think it's especially like in the mental health space, we have to do the work on ourselves so we can help others do the work. And we know as professionals, we can only take people as far as we've gone.
okay.
And there are a lot of individuals in the mental health space that haven't done the work, or they think the work is what's going to help heal them. But, again, when that alignment and that genuineness isn't there, I think that's when people break down,
Right.
whether they rely on substance or negative coping skills or relationships fall apart. Like, you need to know who you are.
So as a chiropractor, I have a chiropractor. As a therapist, you need a therapist.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Dentist is the
Yes.
dentist, right? We don't clean our own. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually great advice. So maybe that's a question when you interview your therapist, is to ask them if they're in therapy.
And
You
if they're
practice what you
offended,
preach.
yes, if they're offended, then that's a red flag.
Right. I think that might be the number one question at this point, absolutely.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Gina, I would love to go back to your experience, right? Of walking through cancer. We opened the podcast with how do you do it? How'd you do it? Right. I mean, you get this shocking diagnosis and it's like a big giant stop sign in front of you, right? Wherever you are in your life. How'd you walk through that? What kind of tools did you utilize to benefit?
I mean, so it was a breast cancer diagnosis back in 2018. So it was before COVID, which was fortunate because I really couldn't have done it without my support system. So it really, like, the whole community that I lived in, rallied, did meal trains, went to chemo with me. So like I had at least two people at every chemo treatment. And a lot of it too was my mental space. So I'm a very positive, upbeat person. I was a cheerleader my whole life. So it's like my motto was like 5, 6, 7, 8, like, let's go. Like,
I love
this, we're
that.
getting this done. Yeah. So it's just the motivator for everything. So, when it happened, I wasn't anticipating doing chemo. So I knew I was going to have the surgery, but, they said it didn't spread to your lymph nodes. So most likely you're not going to have to do chemo and radiation. I was like, perfect. And then I got the news that it did, and I was going to have to do it. And I was like so shocked. And I think, advice I tell people now is, expect the best, but be prepared for the worst, because I was not prepared for that. I even I read some books. I skipped the chemo chapters. I'm like, I'm not going to need to know that. And then, so after the initial shock and awe of it, and being depressed for a day, because I give myself a day. Okay, you want to wallow, you want to feel sorry for yourself and do the whole why me. Great, you have 24 hours. And then you got to pull yourself out of it. And I did. And I changed my mindset. I'm like, instead of looking at it as this awful thing that I have to go through, which it is, but how can I make it positive? How can I make it better? So I got like 20 wigs. I got a different Golden Girls t-shirt and Red Sox t-shirt. And I was a different person for each chemotherapy. I walked in and the nurses would be like, who do we have today? And I had this huge hair. And I was like, this is Bianca, and then we had this other girl, and she had like feathered, and she was like, well, this is Toya, and then I had a blonde wig that looked like Pretty Woman. And so I was Vivian, so every treatment I would go in, and I made it fun for myself and fun for the people that were with me. And so it wasn't so daunting. So, and then obviously just the support of everybody around me.
I love that. Did you have a favorite character? Who did you love to be the most?
I really liked Vivian, honestly, because it was just like this short bob blonde, and that's not who I am. So it was really cute. And then Bangs, another one was a blue haired wig that I wore. It's like short, like another short bob with bangs. And so I loved that one. And I think we called her Stephanie. I don't know why, but I think.
You ever pull them back out again? You ever play around with the wigs?
Girl, yes. I just wore one for Halloween. We did this trunk or treat event, and it was during October. So I wore like my pink tutu, and I wore my pink wig, and it was great.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely love that.
It was fun.
It's great because you've said the word fun now a couple times, and people always make fun of me when I throw cancer and fun in the same sentence. And there's never the word not in between it. It was always about finding the joy and the laughter and, being Vivian, right? It was just whoever you wanted to reinvent in order to be creative, to enjoy the experience.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I've always said I never want to do it again, but I'm actually grateful for the gift.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And looking back at it, I'm like, thank God, because now that was the extra, like I was cancer free, but they did it as preventative, just in case there was some little cells floating around. And looking back, I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. So that I don't have to, I mean, I still have to worry, but not as much.
So I think it's interesting, you know, for those of us that are going through a challenge, whether it's illness as you and I walked through, or, you know, substance abuse, whatever it is, right? I find one of the most difficult things is really watching the people around the people going through it, because there's this sense of helplessness, right? Like you had a great support system, but they couldn't fix you, right?
Mhm.
My friends and family couldn't fix me either, right? I had to walk through the journey. Where in this space is there just some good advice on when people don't know what to do? What should they do? You know, do they treat you as though they always have? Do they tiptoe around? Do they buy gifts and dinners? I mean, how do we help people who don't know how to manage others when
Yeah,
they're still in pain?
that's a really good question because, you know, sometimes I didn't my friends some friends just kind of stopped calling or stopped talking to me because they didn't know what to say or they didn't know how to act. Or then my best friends would call and they would have an issue going on, but they'd be like dancing around it. And I'd be like, well, tell me what's going on with you. Give me a distraction. And they'd say, nothing that I'm going through is what I'm going through is trivial compared to what you're going through. And I'm like, I don't care. Everybody has their own level of, you know, of what they're going through. So like, you're not going to be going through something as traumatic as I am right now because you don't have an illness that could potentially be deadly. So really just ask how they're doing. Like, don't be afraid to ask how they're doing. And I mean, don't harp on it, but still talk about yourself. Like, still tell them what's going on in their life because we need distraction. We want to hear it. And, you know, send over a cleaning lady and a pizza gift card.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
Gluten-free and dairy-free in my world, by the way. Just saying.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Same with Tara. Yes.
Gotta make sure you
Yes.
follow the dietary requirements. That's for sure.
But yeah.
Yeah, it
And, you know,
is a tough
it's
thing.
also important, Cindy, that people need to honor your experience, that even if you know someone that had the same diagnosis, no two cancers are the same. And in 2021, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. So my journey with cancer was walking side by side with him and being really scared. And it was so fascinating to me how people tried to minimize, or oh, he'll be fine, or you caught it early, or it's the most curable cancer. You know what, if someone says the C word, everything, time shuts down. Your whole world shuts down. And Gina knows firsthand, Memorial Sloan Kettering owns you. The appointments are in your portal. You don't make them. You don't even have control over your own life. They own you. And I was just, it's like, oh, well, my uncle had that, or and it's like, but that was his story.
Yeah.
This is our journey. And so that was really fascinating to me that so many people said the wrong thing.
Speaking of the wrong thing, one thing I would never, ever say to a person with breast cancer, well, at least you get a free boob job.
Oh,
do not say that.
Well, first of all, it's not free anyway. It's not free.
It's not free.
Yeah, it's not free.
It's not
so
free.
that's wrong just in and of itself. It's,
Yes.
I think for some people it is that they don't know what to say. So the joke, right? The joke that they think they're making to be funny or light is due to more of their uncomfortableness, right? Than our own. But I agree. I think that's great advice to let people know that maybe there's more appropriate things to say, or to your point, not to say.
Please don't say that.
Right.
Just not to say. Let's take a quick little shift real quick. I think it's really important. We've got a lot of people in a lot of pain in this world and in this space. And unfortunately, there are people who don't know how to be introspective and ask for help. Are there certain things out there that we can give advice to people just listening of, like, if you're that person that's really struggling, how do you ask for help when you think there is none? And then on the second half of that, how do we recognize people that might be struggling, in order to reach out rather than finding out later they were struggling and didn't say a word?
Well, for starters, it's important to identify at least the one person in your life that you really trust, that you can talk to, because nothing gets solved if you keep everything internally. so it has to be shared with someone. So finding that one person that, you really feel like you can confide in, I think is important. And the second part of the question was, how do you
recognize if somebody seems to be hurting? Is
Hmm.
there a way, or are there certain signs that we can just kind of recognize so that we can purposely reach out if we think somebody's in pain?
Well, we need to be present because I feel like so many of us and life, in general is so busy and hectic that we might miss things. So, really paying attention and connecting with people is one way to actually notice. But anytime we notice something different about someone, and, Meghan Markle um, made it iconic to share how much she was struggling when she was part of the royal family. And no one ever said, "Are you okay?" Right? So just asking, like, it doesn't hurt to ask. And so I try to make that a practice. Like, you don't seem like yourself. What's up? Or what's going on? I notice that
Mhm.
you're different today. Just saying that, like, I notice, might make someone feel better. Like, we all want to be seen. We all want people to notice when we're hurting.
Yeah, I love that. It's great advice. So, getting back to how we do it all, let's wrap up here with I'd love some advice from both of you of how do you balance play and purpose in your life, because that's part of doing it all. We've got to have some fun, but we've got to get our shit done, as we say, right? We got to show up and earn the paycheck and take care of ourselves, our partners, our families, our pets, whatever it is. How do you balance those two things, ladies?
You start, Gina.
Okay. Well, I know both of us have a lot going on. So I have a full-time job. We do the podcast, and I also I coach cheerleading, and then I have 4 nieces and nephews that I adore and see all the time, and then friends and all that stuff, your social life. So just kind of really, I iron out my schedule, like from 9 to 5 or 9 to 5. I'm doing my job, my real job, and then I do some things that need to happen. We have events and things at night, so I plan that out. When I don't have my salary paying job, I coach cheerleading, so I have that scheduled out, in the evenings, and then I judge cheerleading on the weekends, sometimes competitions, and then have to a lot. Sundays are usually kind of family days, so just making sure that I'm, equally spending my time with who I need to spend it with. And then, Thursday, Friday night, go out with friends and things like that. So, but it's just really staying disciplined and really making sure, and I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. So that's when I get my workouts in. So it's really like, from not, it's a lot. So you have to really, but I think staying busy, Tara was like, if I had more time to do nothing, everything would go to shit. So it's just,
You
I
just
think
fill it with
staying
other things,
busy.
right? You just fill it with other
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
yeah. So just staying busy. I just love to not nonstop, but just making the time for everything is important to me. And you just have to be disciplined.
I love that. Dr. Tara, how do you balance?
So, I definitely live by the motto of working hard and playing hard. And I might work 14 days in a row, but then I'll go away and really disconnect and decompress. And there's always something on my calendar to look forward to, whether it's a concert, a show, a trip, that's all very important. But I think, really being intentional about my time and having good boundaries is part of it. I have a structured routine. I take good care of myself. I do all the things I tell people to do. I move every day. I hydrate. I have a spiritual practice. And like, my time is valuable, so I don't waste it. And I make sure that every moment counts. And I went back to school for my doctoral degree later in life, working full time, married with children. And at that time, the show This Is Us was like really hot. And people would say, "I don't know how you do it." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not watching This Is Us." Like, when you're on your couch, eating Oreos at night, I'm cranking out papers and dissertations. So I think if you want something bad enough, you make the space in your life. And, just to punctuate this with something Gina and I was talking about, I mostly get asked by men, like, about the podcast and how do you make time. And I say, well, I'm not spending any more time than you are on the golf course, so I don't leave my family on a Saturday for 8 hours to play golf. Like I am seeing clients. Gina and I are going back and forth about social media posts and guests and whatever, so it's just being really intentional, I think, with your time and having good boundaries about how you will and won't spend it.
I love this. We all have the same 24 hours, right? Nobody gets more, nobody gets less. It's just how do you want to fill your 24 hours? And I think both of you offer just some great advice that way, to be intentional, to plan, and to spend the time wisely with the priorities that are important to you. I think it's absolutely great. Well, we're going to take a quick break and listen to our sponsors again. And then when we come back, I have some rapid fire questions for you. I just am curious as to what your answers are. We're going to have a little fun. Are you both up for that?
Let's do it.
Yes.
All right, sit tight. And then at the end, I'm going to have you share how everybody gets in touch with you, follows you, sees what's important to you. We're going to do that at the end. So everybody sit tight. We're going to be right back in a couple minutes. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. Welcome back. I have Gina Sim and Dr. Tara with me. This has been an absolute pleasure, ladies. And now we're going to have a little fun with some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Ready. I'm a little scared though.
Oh, this is almost like, what's that Family Feud, right? Because I've got both of you. So we're going to see who answers.
We have
a buzzer. Okay.
Right?
Uh-oh.
And then, not that any answer is wrong, but then I guess we'll give the other family a chance to answer the question as well. And, we'll let the audience decide who should have won that, I guess. But all right, very first question. If you were the ruler of the universe, who would you trust to drive your chariot? Gina, you hit the button first.
Wonder Woman.
Oh, I love that. Wonder Woman. That's a good one. Although she'd just spin around and get you where you need to be.
Yes, she would.
Yeah. I'm not sure she'd drive you anywhere. All right.
True.
Do you want to play or pass?
Honestly, I was thinking my son.
Okay.
Because he's like fun to be with in a car. He's a good driver, doesn't drive too fast, and we always have a great time when we drive together in a car.
Oh, that's fun. So
I'm sure a chariot would be just as good.
There's no screaming like you need to brake sooner or any of that.
No.
He's a good driver.
No, he's the best.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had a kid like that. My kids are always like, Mom, you have to stop yelling at us when we drive everywhere. So I don't know. I think I should be in the back seat with a blindfold on. It would probably go better. But
that's funny.
All right. Next question. If all animals could be domesticated, what would you pick as your family pet?
First thing, giraffes. I love giraffes.
Okay.
I don't know where I'd put it, but I would want one.
You might need to poke through the second story of the house, right? I mean, how tall are the ceilings,
I don't know. They're pretty tall. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe a baby giraffe.
Baby giraffe. Okay.
Baby giraffe.
Baby giraffe. Gina, what would you pick?
A monkey.
A monkey?
Ah.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I just like little chimpanzees, maybe from a movie I saw way back when. But yeah, I feel like they're more human-like.
Fair enough. That's true. And they probably could be pretty helpful around the house, I would guess.
Yeah. And you can communicate with them because they could do sign language.
Right.
Ah.
I like that answer. That's good. I might reconsider mine. Probably not. But that's okay. All right. What food should be considered a breakfast food that isn't?
This is weird for me because when I eat breakfast, I usually eat leftover dinner.
I was going to say tacos.
Tacos should be breakfast food?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I never understood why we had breakfast food. Like, why can't food just be food and you eat whatever you feel like eating?
It's a good
Well,
point.
in other countries, that's not how it goes. There is no such thing as breakfast food.
Right. I think
Yeah.
I blame the cereal companies. Like, it had to start there, don't you think? Like, the creator of
Yeah.
Frosted Flakes is like, this is only for breakfast. It
Well,
had,
I'm a rebel. I eat dinner for breakfast, so
yeah,
it's okay.
it had to be marketing. There's no doubt about it. All right. If you could change the color of the sky, what color would you make it?
Purple.
That's my answer too.
That's
It's
my
my favorite
answer.
color.
Oh, that's my
Yeah.
answer too. You guys, we can all live on the same planet together
Yay.
Yeah.
when we do
yeah.
that. That's my answer. All right. And second to last question, what is your favorite body part and why?
Huh.
Hmm.
I think my teeth.
You do have great teeth. For anybody
Is
that's
that a
not
body
listening,
part?
absolutely, you do have fantastic
I take
teeth.
impeccable care of them. So,
Like
Okay. I would.
and your smile is everything, right? The shortest distance between you and another person is a smile.
Excellent. I
Mm.
love that. Gina, what about you?
I think I would say my eyes.
Okay. And why?
I don't know. I just feel like they're nice.
They are nice.
They're the
And they're
window
the window to your soul.
Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely. See,
Yes,
so
what she
super
said.
important. So good smile and beautiful eyes. It's perfect. And lastly, what was your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
Well, seeing you, of course,
Yes.
again, which is lovely. But I am always down for discussion about mental health because I am on a crusade to leave this planet destigmatized, where we can talk about it the way we talk about getting our hair done. And there's no shame and, no apprehension. So I thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, it is my pleasure and thank you. I feel the same way about sex. I want to destigmatize sex and sexual health. So we can do this mission together. Absolutely.
Ditto, because
so important.
most of the time people are in therapy, all roads lead to sex anyway. So
we're gonna hit both for sure. Gina, what about for you? What was your favorite thing?
I think just, sharing some advice about, going through a cancer diagnosis and to people that are experience a loved one going through it. So it's really important to know both sides.
And thank you for your vulnerability for that. I know it is important, right? Because we're all going to be faced with challenges, and the more we realize we're not alone on that journey, and there are things that we can learn from other people to help us get through it, I think very important. So thank you both. So share with everybody out there, how can we find you, follow you, the podcast, your organizations, what's important to you? Give me the whole scoop for everybody to check you out.
Gina.
I was going to say, so Tara and I are the co-hosts of the Well Off podcast, which is health, wealth, and living top shelf. So living your best life. We talk mental and physical health and how to be successful, in business and just, in general in your life. You can find us at the Well Off podcast on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, welloffpodcast.com. And then you can find my Instagram, Gina Sim. I think it's Gina Sim 14 maybe at Instagram. But again, if anybody has a breast cancer diagnosis or knows somebody and needs some advice or someone to talk to who's been through it, please reach out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also at the Well Off podcast or at the Dr. Tara. And my behavioral health company is at Preferred Behavioral. So we're here to help. Reach out, DM, we answer.
Love that. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those of you that are interested in learning more about me, please check me out at drscindyspeaks.com or shoot us an email at hello@drscindyspeaks. And please check out the book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag, which is my memoir about my walk through Hodgkin's lymphoma and my mental health challenges that I experienced through that, and many other aspects of my life that you'll learn about. My favorite thing about the podcast today was not only spending time with both of you, but really opening up that conversation of authenticity, transparency, vulnerability, all those things that scare a lot of us out there, to let everybody know it's okay. And the more we do it, the better we're going to learn and grow and get through it together. So I hope all of you out there today, as a result of our conversation, were left positively altered.